Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Ben Diedrich here with the Scotch Whisky Society of America. And as you can tell by the title, we have something special in store today. It's not every day that you get to, or I should say rather I, or anyone in our team, that the society get to uncork a bottle from the Vaults collection. And that's what we'll be doing today. And just to switch things up and have a little bit of fun, I'm going to be joined by two fellow members of the society here in the US. It'll be fun. We'll be uncorking, as you can tell by the description again, cask 24.139 Beauty Beyond Skin Deep, which has really been sort of the pinnacle of our Vaults collection overall. And it'll be fun to hear a couple members join myself in sharing their opinions of the whiskey. Both members have ordered bottles from the Vaults collection in the past, some particularly this one, but all of us will be tasting the whiskey today and offering our own little opinions. I know there are so many out there, so many members rather, who have been asking about this whiskey. It's on our shop right now. Obviously, it sort of stands out, the black label, the box, and a lot of questions about it. So we just thought, hey, you know what, instead of just telling you, why don't we bring some others to join in and offer a tasting? So without further ado, let me add everybody on here. All right. Welcome, you guys here?
Yes.
So everybody, as you can see, I'm joined by two members here, Elhan Orhon and Sam Semaan. First of all, guys, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Great to be here.
Thanks for having us.
So, as I was just explaining, to everybody watching, this is it's the first time we've done this, had members behind the camera tasting in real time. Obviously, this is a recorded session. This will be posted tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, our time. But for everybody watching, this is the first time we've done this, brought real members out there. And first of all, how are you guys?
Doing great, given everything going on. Can't complain.
Hanging in there in sunny Southwest Florida and hoping to get through this little crisis we're in. So it'll be nice once we come out the other side. Yeah,
we were just chatting earlier for you guys watching. So Sam's a member down in Naples, Florida, and I want to give you guys a moment to just introduce yourselves. Elhan is in Chicago, where I happen to live as well. But Sam was just commenting. We were talking about really the rich style of whiskeys. Sort of segueing into what we'll be tasting today. Sam was really trying to prove to us, guys, it gets cold down here. 50 degrees is great weather for drinking, really sherry matured whiskey. Trying to prove a point to Elhan and myself as he can fit right in. And so more power to you, Sam, on that.
The overcoats come out and the sweaters do come out. We even have snow gloves at 45, 50 degrees, those 2 or 3 days a year that we get. So it's tough. It's tough.
Right on. So why don't you guys take a minute? I mean, obviously, introduce yourselves if you want to go around. Just maybe I already mentioned, Sam, you're down in Naples, Florida. Elhan, you're Chicago, Illinois, as well as myself. But a bit about yourselves and your interest in whiskey, and perhaps maybe what brought you into the society, and I don't know what you've enjoyed so far.
Elhan, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks, Ben. As Ben said, I'm in Chicago here. I'm originally from Turkey. Moved to U.S. about, long time ago, almost 30 years ago right now. So I've been a society member for about over 10 years, I think. We were just talking about it. I can't remember when exactly I joined, but it's been a blast. Whiskey is over the years turned into something that I really enjoy and start collecting and buying bottles. My problem is that my ability to consume is a lot smaller than my ability to buy. So over the years, I start, collecting and accumulating a bunch of whiskeys. I have about, 800 bottles of whiskey at home, about 130 plus society bottles. One of the things people always ask, like, hey, you have a lot of whiskeys. What type of whiskeys you like? And my answer always, there's a right whiskey for the right moment, and they're all different. There's no style of whiskey that I prefer one versus the other. I think there's a whiskey for every moment, in my opinion. And that's one of the things that I like about the society, because you have all kinds of different varieties, surprising bottles from different vintages, different age, all with their natural state, cask strength, single cask, and that kind of, if you're getting into this, and it's one of the best way to enjoy different varieties of whiskey. So it's been a joy being part of the society, and I'm actually fairly excited and a bit nervous being on this, and for the first time you mentioned, so no pressure for us.
Yeah, that's a good point, Elhan. I think it's the first time doing a live or recorded tasting note of any meaning. So Yeah, grew up down here in Naples. We started our own Scotch society about 10 years ago. Good friends of mine, John, who's now out in the LA area, and Josh and Steve Schwartz, and a couple of guys came together and decided to start a monthly Scotch tasting that's really evolved into just a beautiful fellowship and trying out different things. We've evolved into not just scotches, but the occasional bourbon. I think we did a global whiskey tasting where we had some Indian single malts and various things. And so really my society membership has evolved from that experience. And I love the society because every single bottle you open is different and you don't know what you're going to get. You might be familiar with a certain distillery and think it's going to be one thing and just get totally blown away by it. And there's just some unbelievable gems that we've been able to uncover. The society for me is great because I do a lot of different client events and different, and I buy a bunch of the stuff and share them with everybody. And so it's been a great way for me to share some of these beautiful whiskeys with people that are in our group and outside the group to really evolve our sort of palate when it comes to enjoying these beautiful whiskeys.
Yeah, and Sam and I were talking earlier. Sam and I actually met in person for the first time. Well, it was last December, so just more than half a year ago. And I had a blast. Went down to Naples, Florida. Had a chance to meet Sam's group, host a tasting, and that was so much fun. It was this beautiful outdoor sort of setting. Tons of whiskey lovers, like packed in, but it's outdoors. And we actually, it's funny, we'll be tasting in a moment the Cask 24139, our current Bolts collection offering. But Sam and I met. He had a bottle of the previous one from the same distillery, very similar. Do you have that on you, by the way?
Yeah, I did bring it up. So
he cracked it open. It was so great. I went to Florida. It was December, cold winter, midwinter, well, early winter rather. Escaped the snow. Went down to Florida. Sam had that bottle. He's like, "Oh, I just opened this. Let's drink it right away." It was a hell of an impression, Sam.
Well, we wanted to keep you coming back. So hopefully, once we get COVID crisis, you'll be coming back down here. Love to have you.
Yeah, look, I mean, for everybody, I know so many members have been asking about our events. Of course, for obvious reasons, we've had to postpone because of the COVID pandemic. And I was pretty bummed for all reasons here in Chicago, Elhan. You can attend a lot of our events, but also the opportunity to go down to Florida and escape the winter, of course, was high on the list. So let's. You want to jump into it? So as I mentioned, we have a pretty special whiskey today. It's usually one that we don't open. Well, I should say we at the society, we try to leave many bottles for members as possible, especially something like this. But it's something that, we're getting so many questions from so many members asking, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can you just offer a tasting? They've been watching our online tastings, and we said, okay, fine. Let's do it with a couple members. So as Elhan just showed the bottle, here it is in the box, and you've probably seen the picture on the website, which this box for the Bolts collection was actually our second version, introduced last year, 2019. And all, you can actually see our new monogram is here on the box, but kind of a thick wooden box, nice copper enclosure, a little window showing it. But this is sort of like an unboxing. You guys watch unboxings on YouTube? I never really think of it. This is almost like although I should say it's an unboxing, but the bottle has been opened. So I'll just show you guys if this helps. Dun, dun, dun. So opening up here, you can see it's a little bit washed out with the light, but that is pretty washed out actually. The full tasting notes of the bottle are here. It says 24.139, Beauty Beyond Skin Deep. And then the full description, and really Elhan, I don't know if you see the box in front of you, it's like a very poetic description. I guess that's all are of the whiskey itself, but let's pull this one out here.
Yeah, those boxes are incredible, by the way. With the packaging and the little touches. I know on 24.38, it was just very impressive how they put it all together.
Yeah, you can kind of see.
The old ones used to open from the top, and it was kind of hard to get the bottles in and out. I think this new is a bit bigger. It's better to display, and I love it actually.
Yeah, good. Okay, I'm glad. Yeah,
I generally enjoy Society's bottles, just the shape, the color. But these black ones, especially the Volt ones, they have a class. I think these are some of my favorite whiskey bottles or main distillery brands or independent bottlers. I think the Volt bottles with the whole cask, and the case is very, very classy. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I guess just before we start pouring, and Sam, I know you're like trigger happy. You got it right there in your glass already.
I'm ready to go.
How do you do? Oh, I'm behind right now. Okay.
Yes.
All
right, sorry.
The nose is already coming through here. It's,
Well, a quick note, guys, on the Vaults collection. What is it? It's been out for, well, I want to say, technically in 2020, a few years now. We started off with another cask from Distillery 24, but the Vaults collection is simply a celebration of the rarest cask in our warehouse. We have over 10,000 casks, in our warehouse maturing in Scotland right now, and quite a few more scattered throughout Scotland at various distilleries that we've acquired. So of those, all of the casks, imagine walking in a warehouse with 10,000 plus casks. It's simply just picking out the selection of a few that are really the most special. Either they're from distilleries that are no longer operating and therefore you cannot get a whiskey from like there anymore, or distilleries that you don't really just see bottling single cask whiskey often. And generally, but not generally, it's also of a certain maturity requirement. And in this sense, this is a 30-year-old Speyside whiskey. And it says here, distilled 12th of May, 1989. I know sometimes when you hear 1989, you think, well, that wasn't that long ago. But in whiskey years, it's in 2020, it's now late 80s is old in that sense. And it's here cask type from a refill sherry butt. Is that blurred out? I'll try to get to focus a little bit, but sometimes if I do that, I don't know. Anyway, the webcam focal point is always sort of tricky to acquire, but cask 24.139, Beauty Beyond Skin Deep here. Little copper ribbon shows is different with the Vaults collection, but this is really at this point sort of the pinnacle of our Vaults collection offerings. We've offered other casks from Distillery 24 in the past. Sam, you pointed the 24138, which is a bourbon barrel, which is totally different to what we see. We've offered various types, but this is a 30-year-old sherry butt, more of a classical style Speyside Scotch whiskey. And so let's do this. I'm going to go. You guys are ready to go. I'm going to join you in pouring, and I want to just take some time to hear your thoughts on it, what your first impressions, and just overall feedback, I guess, would be helpful to everybody watching.
I guess we've been talking about this whiskey before we all went live or recorded. I guess it's from the nose and the color. It's in my mind, it's one that starts surprising you right away. Like among the general consensus, when someone thinks about a 30-year-old sherry cask Speyside, I don't think you expect a much darker color, and I think this has this beautiful golden amber color coming out of this bottle, which is, I think, one of the first surprising elements of how this turned out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Sam. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's true. I would have thought that the color would be a much darker, a reddish color, but it's actually a beautiful amber color here. And I mean, the nose on this, I don't know, are we jumping the gun? I mean, you do these for a living, Ben. We're just novices here. So are we?
No, we're all, I mean, look, we're all SMWS members here, and there's no, I think
society here with our tasting notes, but I think the nose on it is just incredible. You do pick up that sherry right away, and certainly we've all had some sherry casks in the past, but it's a more delicate sherry. It's a little bit more nuanced sherry, and maybe that's just the age setting through, but it's just got a beautiful nose to it.
Yeah, so I think dark amber sort of in appearance, and I agree with you guys. Normally, sometimes you would think, oh, a 30-year-old sherry whiskey, really, really cask heavy. But, we've been hearing from a lot of society members that when you get to a whiskey that's this old and it's really, really dark and really cask heavy, sometimes you miss out on the ability to appreciate the underlying spirit and all of its complexities, And so I think this, by design, is intended to be a more balanced 30-year-old whiskey that offers to kind of experience the marriage between the wood as well as the spirit and all the unique, complex flavors from that alone.
Very interesting nose as well. Another thing that jumps, I don't know whether it's the right time to talk about it, but this has, 46.9% alcohol. So it doesn't jump on your nose. So it's very easy to nose, and at least my nose is not burning at all. And, you can kind of enjoy the flavors right away, without being overpowered by the high alcohol, basically.
Yeah, I get like a beautiful array of sort of like like a dark sherry fruits, but not so intense, with a bit of ginger and like cinnamon spice. But it's all sort of well balanced for me. It's not overly spicy. It's not overly sweet. There's a nice balance between earthiness underneath it.
Oh, just beautiful.
Surprisingly, I think I get some lighter fruity notes at the background as well. This is, maybe it's coming from what you just mentioned. This is not an overpowering sherry. You have a lot of sherry coming up, but I kind of get some light fruity notes at the back as well.
Oh man, fruity, earthy. So the label I'll say here,
Is that what it says? I didn't even read the label.
The fruity, earthy, and syrupy aromas are a blast from the past. And I agree, it kind of evokes that old world whiskey sort of aroma.
Yeah.
Seesawing between classical and different, but never less than beautiful or elegant. We should have read the label before we even said it, but I think your description, you guys, or both of you, you sort of nailed it. As I mentioned, it's kind of this old world aroma, seesawing between classical and different, but nevertheless than beautiful or elegant. I like that. Yeah,
that's nice. And the label description there, I don't see it. The website description is a little different than what you read. So apparently there's a little more color on the label, which is great.
Yeah, the website description is the full tasting note, the author, to give sort of the full story. This is sort of an abbreviated or express.
Sure.
Sometimes there's some overlap, sometimes there's not. But I'll show the bottle again for everybody watching. Beauty Beyond Skin Deep.
But I think at the same time, I'm looking over that this has very long, heavy legs. So I think I'm actually curious on the palate. I think it's going to display some of those characteristics of an old Speyside, especially coming from this distillery. So
yeah, it's hard to tell with the camera when you hold it up to show everybody, but it's if you guys can see this, this might be a little too difficult, but yeah, very slow moving legs, suggesting really kind of a thicker spirits. Oh yeah, but really just oily. You can see that thin band of oil on the top of the spirit, and obviously being a society whiskey, it's naturally colored, it's non-chill filtered, so really capturing whiskey in more of its purest form than what you'd find in it. I think for most whiskeys on the shelf.
Sorry, guys, I have all my audio visual turned off. I think you can really pick up on the age just from the nose. I would.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Ben?
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Frozen.
Is my camera still working? Because it's kind of frozen on mine. Just to make I know that
your camera's frozen.
Okay, we'll get that. I think my kids were trying to FaceTime me here, so
oh yeah.
Cell phone off in advance.
Oh, we'll continue nosing.
Yeah, keep going.
We're not in a bad place. We'll wait for you. Elhan, what else do you think? Picking up any other aromas on this one, or what we get? Sam, I think Sam has become infatuated with the whiskey, and therefore.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take a little break here, guys, and enjoy this.
Let's. If you want to restart Q and re-enter, that might help, and we can get you back in.
No, it's great. A lot of sherry, some sweet notes coming up. I can tell this is going to be I think, sweet whiskey on the palate. And again, I don't know, it's me or I keep getting at the back like a zesty, some light citrusy flavors at the same time. Just.
Yeah, I do get a little it's like a burnt orange peel from it.
Yeah.
It's not a smoky whiskey. It's not peated or anything, but there is a sort of a smoky character beneath it all. It could be from the char of the wood, or anything. But I'm getting more of those fruity notes that you mentioned. It was more sherry and nutty for me at first, but now it's
I think that's what I like about it. I tried to say at the beginning as well. You're not overpowered by the sherry. It's there, it's dominant, but it's not overpowering. So I think you can kind of start getting some of the other deeper notes with this.
Yeah. Well, Sam,
I'm excited right now. I can't wait to taste this. I'm waiting for Sam.
But I think as Sam's coming back, I think Sam, we'll here he comes. Here we go.
We got to figure it out here. I apologize. See that?
Our mouth was really watered. We were at the breaking point of.
I was going to say, I hope you didn't get into it before me. I couldn't tell what was going on there, but it shows you that we're kind of new to this whole pre-recorded tasting notes. But so are we ready to actually taste it?
We're ready to go. I've got my We got dueling whiskey and water glasses here. I'm just gonna.
I don't know you guys, but I'm going for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Wow.
Definitely, the legs were not lying. It's a mature, oily, aged whiskey. You can tell right away.
Yeah, there's no simulating like the experience. It's a proper old complex whiskey. What do you think, Sam?
That is just complex and delicious and just beautiful. I mean, there's so many nuances there from right when the viscosity on it, the flavor profile in your mouth. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I think this is we said at cask strength, which is obviously over time the ABV will go down. So this is 46.9%. Not overpowering. It's sort of at a strong level.
Not at all. Look, I will add some water just to explore different flavor profile. But this is one that I don't think you need to add any water or anything like that. It's so easily drinkable. Really nice, smooth whiskey.
Yeah,
for a cask strength whiskey.
Tell me, but on the palate, I'm gonna taste it again. But I got like a lot of old leather and a bit of sort of like worn. Well, obviously, wood. Oak is sort of a prevalent. It's not overly oaky. I'm not crazy of the ones where it's just oak dominant, but it's a very prevalent. It's that old leather and wood.
Very earthy.
Yeah, you do get those earth notes and that almost like a nice muskiness to it.
But as I was suspecting from the nose, it's a very sweet and long and sweet finish.
Oh man, the finish goes on and on and on.
Yeah,
I'm gonna add just a couple of drops just to see what the water does. But I'm leaning towards what Elhan said, which is it likely doesn't need much water.
Yeah, I mean the beauty is that when it's cask strength, you can do it however you want. You have some room to play with, and then this one you got a little bit to kind of just experience the evolution with the addition of water.
Yeah, we always have this debate in our group, and it's been a 10-year debate. So at this point, we haven't solved it. But there's the anti-water folks in the group, and I'm in the pro-water camp.
Yeah,
I'm almost convinced that just a couple of drops really opens up virtually any whiskey and evolves it and makes it a little more nuanced. But we have some guys in the group. I can mention any names potentially out in LA that are really in that anti-H2O camp. So it's in. I think it's personal preference, really.
It's a very vocal camp.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
and I agree, Sam. Like it's personal preference. Personally, I'm a pro water guy. Cask strength whiskey. I like using water to calm down the alcohol to a certain allow new flavors and aromas to come forward. But hey, look, a lot of people love it pure.
And every whiskey is different, though. My suggestion is always be open-minded and explore, because there are some whiskeys that I like it without water after trying with water. There are some whiskeys is exactly the opposite. I like the flavor profile after I add a few drop of water. So I always recommend folks to just be open-minded, just enjoy it multiple ways and find your balance. I think.
Yeah, this is the word elegant is beautiful and elegant are both words on the label. I think this is what I would classify as a classical elegant whiskey. Like it is one that it's not a social whiskey. It's one that, it's great that we can do this together, but you want to be in a room where it's quiet. Maybe you, one or two other people who also appreciate it. I think it deserves that level of attention. I don't know, but you could say that about any whiskey almost, but for me, this is definitely one that I think when you focus on it, there's so much to offer.
I totally agree. I've been getting into more and more what people may call like the vintage whiskeys, the late 70s and 80s vintage whiskeys. Kind of what I'd still call it the classical time of whiskey when whiskey was not even popular worldwide,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes I feel some distillers are over trying these days, trying to come up with different flavor profile. I think this is one of those whiskeys that match that classical vintage. They let the cask and the distillery, show their classical craftsmanship, and they didn't try to do anything else. They took the time to do this work, basically. It's just a beautiful classical whiskey, very elegant.
This is what you think of when you think of just these brilliant, fantastic scotches with a lot of age and just really worthy to either a special occasion or, like you said, sharing it with a few quiet drams with friends. But it's not something that you would certainly not relish. It really is exceptional.
Yeah. I mean, man, I just took another sip, probably my third. I'm losing track. But it's got so much going on, and I just appreciate that about the whiskey. It's so much going on, and just even at neat level, because again, 46.9% ABV, not super high, but high enough where it's got a punch. And I don't know, for me right now in this mood and at this time of day, it's like it's really just hitting all the right notes, And my palate's pretty fresh. I haven't eaten much. It's been a busy work day, but so for me, it's easy to pick out all these things. But there's so much going on between that leather, the earthiness, the leather, the sort of the charred wood, but then the fruitiness of the sherry notes interlated with sort of the baking spices, the cinnamon, a bit of nutmeg, and like this herbal undertone. I think with like a bit of clove and other sort of herbs is pretty remarkable.
I think one of the elements that I like the most is the finish. The palate has all elements of a very aged classical whiskey. It's oily, it has that earthiness, woodiness, but finish is not for folks who likes like a punch finish. This doesn't have a punch finish, but it's a long, sweet finish which changes the taste as you think about it, basically, as you let it sit over there. So I really like the finish of this whiskey.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. I'm gonna compare it, Ben, to 138, just to kind of put them side by side.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So Sam, show that bottle too. So that's another Vaults collection bottle, and it's the one that preceded this Cask 24139 Beauty Beyond Skin Deep. So there it is. So it's 24138, the Emperor's Old Clothes. So 29 years, very similar in age, from the old and dignified flavor profile. And the cask on that is, so what is it? The
ABV is 51.2. And the interesting thing about this is just refill ex-bourbon barrels. So obviously you don't get any of that sherry, that dried fruit on the nose. And as you can see, we're about 60% of the way through the bottle, shared with a lot of different friends.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's you don't get the nose is nice, but you don't get that nice sherry. And I like a sherry cask. I'm drawn to that particular cask just because it gives it a little fruitiness to it, and I think it's a little bit more complex.
Yeah, when we had the one that you have, the 24138, I was blown away by the complexity of really the different profile. But I want to hear your thoughts.
Wow, that's nice.
Now he's making us jealous. Going between 138 and 39.
I'm leaning in like what?
138 is a beautiful whiskey, and it's exceptional. They're very different, right? And so 1 year doesn't tell the story. It's not a 29 versus a 30. I think the sherry really comes out obviously on the 139. 138 is a beautiful Scotch, and I would say if I had to choose, and right now I would go with the sherry, and not to take anything away from 138 because it is an absolutely fantastic Scotch, and I'm really glad that we've been enjoying it. But I'm drawn to the sherry and the little nuance that comes out on the nose. The viscosity on the sherry, the 30-year-old sherry, I think it's a little bit more mouthy. It's a little more full. And again, I'm not a professional taster here, Ben. But I think I would just give it they're both A pluses. Maybe one's just one notch above the other one. The 139, I think, would get the gold.
This is so good. I'll go back to that classical comment. It's today's. I think a lot of distilleries are trying to try different finishes to create different profile as you drink it. This whiskey on its own has at least 5 layers of profiles in it, and it's coming from one cask. You know, it's amazing in my mind.
I know. I'm enamored at this point with it. It's funny. I remember when I first opened the bottle, it tasted very different. It was a bit punchy, and I find that to be the case with all of our whiskeys, especially really any cask strength whiskey. They need a little bit of time to breathe. You know, pour a dram or two, and then give it some time. I think this is really, really evolved to just really the point where it's really singing on all levels.
Sam, I may be repeating what you just said. I think you said that right. You know, I went back without the water. You know, I put a little bit more. I like this without water, actually.
Yeah, I would say I'm neutral on the water for 139. I actually really enjoyed water on 138 and its predecessor. So I think, to your point, Elhan, I'm probably in that 80 to 90% water camp where it improves most scotches. On this one, I would say because it's a slightly below 50% ABV, I don't think it needs any water, although it's been sitting there for 30 years in a cask with no water coming to it. So that water almost just instantly opens up some of these really old single malts. But in this case, I'd say I'm neutral on water there.
Yeah, but man, it's so great to taste and then go back to nosing it again, because I find that the palate does follow the aroma a bit. Sometimes you'll have a whiskey where you'll nose it and the profile is completely different from what you taste. This one seems to follow through pretty well. And when you go back and nose again, it only sort of accentuates what you just tasted. So it's a really, does that make sense? It's a really harmonious experience from the beginning to the end. Well, the beginning to the middle to the end and then back again.
This is a whiskey to finish the night. You should have another whiskey after you had this. So to me, this is a late night, even though it's kind of late afternoon maybe, but a late night. This is like to cap it off. You know, it's hard to top this up with another whiskey. So I love that oiliness coming up from, you know, I think it's one of the profiles from this distillery as well. It has all of those classical characteristics, but it's a little bit of a surprising color, a bit surprising, you know, fruity finish. And it's kind of I think the label said it right. It's combining this classical and yet, you know, a little bit surprising elements all in one. I really like it.
Yeah,
sometimes I struggle with the society labels. I'm like, okay, I don't get that, you know, like yeah. This is one that actually I agree with the label.
Yeah, I mean, we all taste and nose, we all smell and taste different things, right? So I think there's some underlying probably commonalities within the tasting note, but ultimately it's, you know, you might pick up different things. And so I find myself sometimes not arguing with the labels, but saying, I don't know about this one or that one. But at the end of the day, it's just, we all have a different take on it. You know, that's what it comes down to. But so, yeah. So it sounds like I like how Sam's going quiet at times, just like sitting back. Like, I think that says it all at times. If you just don't want to talk, you want to just enjoy.
No, I just want to enjoy these two beautiful scotches from an unbelievable distillery. And it just, if you think about the juice sitting there for 30 years in a barrel, and then we get to experience it, I think there's a certain poetic beauty to that you just really got to enjoy and savor.
Yeah, you know, I think that's a good point. Sorry, Elhan, you're gonna go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, I think, were we talking about this the other day when I was over at your place a few days ago? We were just talking about, well, we were talking about different regions. Islay came up at one point, and maybe I'm just confusing our conversation with my own internal thought. But you know, I know you're sort of into whiskeys of old and young and really everything, and so are you, Sam. I mean, you're kind of. I see all those bottles behind you. I know that's a good variety. But I think, you know what, age is not everything, but I do appreciate your point, Sam.
Yeah.
Thinking about the history of this cask that sat there for that long. Nothing really changed. It just sat there. But but
the world changed, right, since 1989. Later, I mean, the world.
Yeah, here we are on YouTube streaming.
waiting for us to crack it open and really enjoy it. It's beautiful. But you heard the tasting earlier with Jenna and Lafroig, and 8-year-old Lafroig is his favorite sort of tasting profile. Yeah, for John Campbell. So it's interesting with Islas. I think you can. I really enjoy young Isla, but with a space side, I mean, it's got to have some age to it for me to really enjoy Speyside, and then it goes sort of head and shoulders above a lot of these other scotches out there.
Yeah, and that's kind of what makes it fun, right? That's where I think craftsmanship coming that from all of these distilleries, how to make a very young whiskey exceptional, or how to take something and let it age in the right location and the right spot, and that cask will go another 30 years, another 5 years, and finding that right balance. And I think in this cask they definitely found that balance. So I don't know how this whiskey will have turned out at 25 or 35, but this is in my mind a perfect balance.
Yeah.
What's interesting about some of these 30 and 25 and 40-year-old scotches is, in our minds, you think, okay, once it gets to 30 years old, it's reached it. But you can speak to this, Ben, I'm sure, but they've probably tried a bunch of different 30-year-olds that were absolute duds, that just didn't, they were just, after 30 years with whatever happened in that barrel and the wood and that scotch, it was not a good scotch, and they wouldn't bottle it. So the idea is, I'm sure they had to go through several different 30-year-old barrels before they got to this really beautiful 30-year-old that we're enjoying today.
Yeah, I mean, I think with all of the society whiskeys, they all go through the tasting panel process, which is pretty heavily scrutinized every cask that we've acquired. So obviously the cask acquisition process, us going out, traveling Scotland and really the rest of the world now, and acquiring these casks, there's a level of sort of strict approach of finding ones that are only either really unique to the distilleries or things that you don't see it at all, but also of a certain really standard of quality. And then throw them in our warehouse, gently place them in our warehouse, I should say, and then let them sit for however much time, and then have our tasting panel come together, really sort of nosing and tasting experts, assess each sample drawn from our warehouse casks, and then only choose it when it's ready to be bottled. And so yes, there are a lot of casks in there that need more time, but there are a lot of casks that just will never cut the bar, and then they will never get bottled. But there's no telling how many times this particular cask went to the tasting panel before it was finally approved. We don't know that information, but rarely is a whiskey just approved from the first time.
We've been talking about this earlier. So another name for this whiskey could have been Angels Must Be Pissed, something like that. This yielded almost 560 bottles. Angels didn't get enough share out of this cask.
Right.
Over 30 years.
Yeah.
So we're lucky. I think we got a lot of bottles came out of this, but just over 30 years. So it's interesting. I don't know whether that played into the alcohol level of this whiskey as well, but.
And in case anyone's wondering, because Elhan, you just showed that bottle, if anyone's asking, well, why is Elhan? I see his bottle's closed. Elhan and I were just together in Chicago a few days ago, and you made a bottle. I said, have you opened it yet? He said, I haven't had a chance. I'm opening so many bottles, and so I brought him a sample. So just to clear the air in case anyone's saying,
yeah, this is my sample, and this is the actual bottle. Still waiting.
I wouldn't be surprised if I see a picture of that open soon enough.
Knowing how good this is, I don't think I'll be able to have the patience to not to open this. Yeah. I think this is going to get open sometime soon.
Well, listen, I want to kind of just close up. First of all, it's been a pleasure to enjoy this whiskey with you. I mean, I think the whiskey's great, but it's also great to share it with you guys. Obviously, appreciate all of your support for the society over the years. And I'm glad you enjoyed it too, for the most part.
Beautiful.
So no, this was great. Thank you for the opportunity. It always says that one of the best things about whiskey is the moments that you share and the folks that you meet. And Sam, it's great to meet you, even virtually on this. That's one of the great things about the society tastings, that you meet different people with sharing the same passion. So this was a blast to be able to do this, even virtually. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. This was just absolute ball of the time, and we look forward to sharing a dram with you in person, both of you, when I'm up in Chicago. And if any society members find their way down in Southwest Florida, Google me, find me, ping me, and I'm always happy to get together and share any of the followings that I have. So thanks again for organizing this.
Yeah, of course. And just for everybody watching, I know we've gotten a lot of questions. Obviously, Father's Day is coming up, and a lot of members have been asking about it. It is available currently, Cask 24-139, Beauty Beyond Skin Deep. Really kind of quite a special Father's Day gift for those of you who want to gift it. But it has been a pleasure sharing with you guys. I appreciate that. And we look forward to the next time. So cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.